the opposition in Syria. Syria being a place that Iran's ally, or Iran has been very involved. Does that put America and Americans at home at greater risk of these sorts of attacks, in your view?
Yes, it does. That can't be enough to stop us from doing whatever we feel we have to do. From doing whatever we feel we have to do. From doing whatever we feel we have to do. I would say even the tightening of the sanctions increases the risk. I think obviously if we get engaged with Syria or with Iran ultimately in a confrontation with Israel, then yes, that definitely increases the likelihood that Iran and or Hezbollah would strike within the United States. We're assuming that. We're assuming which is why we're trying to monitor everyone in this country who has had contacts with Hezbollah in the past, who is associated with Hezbollah. Some are just into fundraising, others are facilitators, but we're monitoring them very, very carefully.
Do you think that there could already be an Iranian or Hezbollah sleeper cell in the United States, given that there have been reports, and again suspected, unconfirmed, that Iran could have been involved in those bombing targets in the past few days for Israeli officials overseas?
Erin, we have to assume that they are, and that's certainly what Mitch Silber was making clear in his op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. This is what Iran has done in Argentina years ago. It's certainly what they're now doing overseas in Thailand and India and Georgia. So no, we have to assume that. Again, we hope not, but we assume they do, and that's why I can tell you there is a tremendous amount of counter-terror activity by all the elements of the U.S. intelligence community right across the board, and also state and local.
Just about the rhetoric, I'm just wondering, some people say, well, look, the rhetoric's overblown, you all keep talking about this, this really, that's part of the problem. I mean, what do you say to those criticisms, that this is more about rhetoric than reality?
No, you can take some, again, I'm a Republican saying this. I have no reason to be defending a Democratic administration for political reasons. When you have people like General Clapper and General Petraeus, when you have really across the board in the intelligence community in this administration, all the leaders saying how concerned they are about an attack from Iran, a possible attack from Iran or Hezbollah, when you have the NYPD, which has the best local counterterrorism unit in the entire country, which also works as 24/7, and you see what Iran is doing overseas, we would be negligent in not talking about it because it's important to alert local governments, local communities, especially if anyone in their community sees any activity or sees anything unusual, to call the police, call the FBI.
All right, well, thank you very much, Representative King. We appreciate it. All right, well, with the GOP split between Romney and Santorum, the dream for some, the nightmare for others. Isn't that the way things are in life? A brokered convention. And is likelihood of Texas, with a massive 155 delegates, delaying its primary from April 3rd. It could be late May, some saying even later. The date is contested still. Now, it's still a little bit early to talk about a possible brokered convention, but that hasn't stopped us from doing it, frankly, for the past several months.
In fact, nothing has stopped this woman for lying for her network and continuing the lies. A brokered convention is a way to steal the convention and give it to a pro-warmonger that will promote the lies that Iran attacked American ships that we've strategically placed there just to be sunk, just like the USS Liberty was attacked and sunk in 1967, almost sunk in 1967 by Israel. She laughs. Look how joyful they are at the prospect of a lie and another brokered convention to cheat Ron Paul, who's the only one the veterans, both active and retired, really support. They don't care about veterans. They want to have another war, get more veterans killed. Here's Pete King. This is the same Pete King that accused Michael of being guilty even after a jury found him completely not guilty. This man cannot be trusted, even though he's a congressman from Long Island. Pete King is a complete idiot, and they put him in charge of intelligence and Homeland Security specifically because he's an idiot. Anybody that would say a jury of 12 white people made a mistake in finding Michael Jackson innocent in '05 has got to be as dumb as these people that you see, these pretty faces you see on CNN. Hi, I'm William Wang for On Second Thought Television, and this idiot woman you see here on CNN behind me, this woman is a pretty face to sell you on the concept of attacking Iran because they might develop a nuclear weapon, while our friends, both India and Pakistan, are at war with each other on the border constantly, and we sold them the nuclear technology. And nobody's saying we should go to war with India or Pakistan. What you need to remember, if you've never heard this, let me tell you, there are 34 U.S. sailors that were murdered by Israel when they attacked knowingly and wantedly in June of 1967 the U.S.S. Liberty ship.
Exercise in the Allies' history in which the notorious Iron Dome system will be tested as well. What do you make of this further militarization of Israel in what many call a very volatile region?
I think very, very little of it. I must say this. I am a USS Liberty survivor that was attacked on June 8, 1967, where 34 of my shipmates were slaughtered by the government of Israel in a premeditated attack. They knew exactly who we were. They knew exactly where we were going. We were in international waters. And the government of the United States covered up this heinous attack that murdered 34 of my shipmates and wounded 174 others, including myself, and wounded our ship so badly it had over 850 cannon rocket holes in it, over 5,000 armor-piercing bullets in it. It had a 40 by 40 foot torpedo put in it. As the Israelis shot our only 3 life rafts out of the water, there were to be no survivors. And as they shot it, the U.S.-Israel planned largest war games, and this is the largest war games between two allies that I've ever heard of. What I think it is, these aren't war games, this is real war.
This woman back here, this idiot pretty-faced shill for the New World Order, is not telling you that Israel, our ally, attacked the USS Liberty, wounding over 130 sailors who survived and killed 34 sailors. Now they've set us up for another war, a World War III that they wanted back in '67. Only this time, there's nuclear subs from Israel. Israel has a nuclear sub on each end of that narrow Strait of Hormuz, and they've positioned the USS Enterprise, which was due to be decommissioned, a very expensive proposition for a nuclear ship like the USS Enterprise. But if those Israeli subs sink the U.S. Enterprise and blame Iran just like Israel did in 1967 when they tried to sink the USS Liberty, almost sank the USS Liberty, with LBJ's nodding acceptance and silencing the 7th Fleet Admiral that knew what had happened. If they pull this off, they could trigger us into World War III before the November election. I urge you to do just this. Call 202-264-5500, the Israeli Embassy in Washington, D.C., and tell them I know that the USS Liberty was not attacked by Egypt. It was attacked with knowledge and at direct command of the Command Central of Israel in June of 1967. Those 34 U.S. sailors were murdered, killed by order of the High Military Command of Israel, our supposed ally, in June 1967. Now they've set us up to kill sailors on the USS Enterprise. And that's why there's an Israeli sub, nuclear armed, on both ends of the Hormuz. And they're sailing our USS Enterprise. If you've got a son, a daughter, somebody on that ship, you want to let them know that they're not safe. They're being sent to be a sacrificial lamb, just like 9/11 was a sacrificial lamb, because Osama bin Laden had nothing to do with 9/11. And that's why the 9/11 Commission dismissed their own report when it was done. They said it was appalling. We're being set up for World War III. At least call the USS Enterprise, if you have a friend there, and let them know they're being set up to be sacrificed. But most importantly, I think the most important thing we could do to scuttle this plan that Israel has to trigger the U.S. to come into nuclear war with Iran, and that'll trigger a war. And that's why you've had these wars. The CIA has been setting up wars in Libya, in Syria. They've been setting this up to get us to the point. The only person that we're not upsetting, the only nation that is Saudi Arabia. But all these nations around it are being made to be subject. The domain, when it's over, Saudi Arabian princes will be top dog in the Arab Peninsula. But it may turn into nuclear war. So call 202-364-5500, the U.S. Embassy, and leave them a message that you now know about the USS Liberty being attacked by Israel. And it was no mistake, as they tried to cover up and say it was a mistake. It was no mistake. The pilots have been debriefed years afterwards saying, we called on they were fighter pilots, called the Israeli high command, said, no, it's an American ship. They said, sink it, shoot it, kill it. And LBJ, the president of America at the time, he was okay with it. He recalled the 2 fighters sent to save the USS Liberty. That's when we had Henry Kissinger and people of great Jewish influence in the White House. I'm William Wagner. I love America. I am a Vietnam veteran. I am a disabled Vietnam veteran. And I don't want to see another nuclear World War III and millions of dead people, hundreds of thousands of dead American soldiers based on a lie. If Israel really doesn't want war, then she should pull her nuclear subs out of the Straits of Hormuz, get away from the U.S. ships. But it's all too easy with the media in total compliance. And that's why you see them here just recently, all this terrorist news on CNN. And this pretty face here, the shill, bringing up the fact that, oh, it looks like Mitt and Romney and Rick Santorum, the real people of America, the nuts and heart and breath of America, want Ron Paul. Most of all the active duty soldiers, and all the active duty airmen, the Marines, and us retired veterans, we want Ron Paul. He is a veteran. He knows about war. And he wants peace for America, peace for the world, not a World War III that could be nuclear in an instant. Now there is something you can do. Call the U.S. Israeli Embassy in Washington, D.C. at 202-264-5500 and say, we know about what you did to the USS Liberty in '67. It better not happen to the USS Enterprise or any other American ship. We know what you're trying to do. I'm William Wagner, hoping you take this to heart and make that call. You may be the deciding factor in stopping World War III. See ya. And stop watching CNN and Fox. It's all propaganda. Good night.
Make Ron Paul the Republican Party's nominee for president. I realize that's what you are in this for. But for the sake of argument, say that you do not achieve that, but you have amassed a very large number of delegates heading into the Republican convention. What would then be the purpose of amassing all of those delegates? What would you use that power and that leverage for?
Well, as you know, anybody who's an observer of modern political history knows that a brokered convention is extremely remote. There are delegates that will move to another candidate if they get a box of Godiva chocolates on their pillow at the hotel in Tampa that night. But Ron Paul delegates are not going to go even if they are offered Secretary of State. So if we can get to a convention with a sizable number of delegates, and if Gingrich stays alive and Santorum stay alive, we could have a brokered convention. It would be a huge show, even though there's a remote possibility. And of course, there are many things we want. We'd like to see the Federal Reserve audited, for example, and Romney's the only candidate left in the Republican Party who hasn't taken that step, and with good reason. His money's coming from Goldman Sachs.